Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Good morning and welcome. It's a bright Monday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And from Abuja, good morning. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, the issues are always going to be there, and some of them, of course, we'll be delving into this morning. We'll see some of them on the front pages of the dailies, but one of them is, of course, we will be talking about security or a lack of it, and some people have pointed fingers at the functions or responsibility of the state governments in achieving that. And then there are those who have also raised the issues of whether or not the states themselves are even viable enough to tackle the issues they have with or without security. Chamberlain, why are you laughing? Anyway, we'll come to that one. The thing I want to talk about this morning is, at least based on this special report by our correspondent, Alina, who talked about, the report that talked about the states' financial status and internally generated revenue of them. And there are many issues to raise from there. Issues of transparency, issues of accountability, issues of viability, issues of whether or not the states themselves can even raise enough, to live by themselves. And the report, I hope you saw it, maybe we will even be able to play it to you, says that about just maybe one or two of the states, all 36 states, including Abuja, is capable of having some change after settling all of its own bills. The question that you want, and that is outside of the federal allocations that the states receive. Without the federal allocations, that report indicates that it's hardly a state that can stand on its own, maybe just two or three. The questions, so many questions to ask about that, Maupe, and I'm wondering, I don't even know where to begin.
Well, neither do I, Ayo. Neither do I this morning. When you think about where our states currently are, you really have every reason to worry about the future, especially when you look at what is currently happening with the Federation accounts and how much the NNPC has been remitting to the Federation accounts. There have been talks that in the past few months or so, the NNPC has been able to remit very little, if anything at all, after it has settled subsidies. And then when you also look at this lingering judgment debt, which I think the Supreme Court has now ruled in favor of one of the people who went to court over what happened with the Paris settlement funds. I mean, there are questions as to whether states will be able to pay that much money. But then, if that's what the courts say, then states must find how to pay it. So very big questions as to the current state of the states in terms of financial reading. What is this level of accountability across the states? It leaves a lot to be desired. Yeah, some people might claim that, oh, well, we do a budget every year. You can see how, if you want to see just what we're raising and what our revenue pattern is or our expenditure pattern is, go and take a look at our budget. But then we all know that, that's oftentimes what is done in the budget is just for formality. And that, when it comes to accountability, trickling down the different levels from the state to the local government, there is a lot left to be desired at that particular level. Very few people are very interested in what the states are earning. And the way we are now structured, where everybody is their own local government, except something concerns us all, such as the state of roads or maybe the state of security, as we're increasingly seeing, generally everybody has just learned to mind their business. It's like government on the one hand and the people on the other. So it continues. Look at that. That's the FAC allocation for May 2022, and that's how much the federal government gets, and that's how much the states are supposed to get, local government, etc. Then there is also derivation to all producing states and then total allocation. And that's where we currently are at. Oftentimes, there's plenty of attention to what the federal government gets because it gets the lion's share. But people are increasingly raising the awareness of people that we need to beam a searchlight on the subnational level or at the subnational level, that the states are also getting something and that there needs to be a little more accountability at that level. And it is what happens at the state For instance, I live in the Federal Capital Territory. It is what the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and the area council chairman do or don't do that directly affects my life. Well, I live in Abuja, so you can also say that the federal government is directly responsible for what happens in the FCT. But for many more states, it is what the governors of those states do or do not do that directly affects the people who live in those states. It is what the local government chairmen do or do not do that directly affect those who live in communities. For instance, security that we're currently, the breakdown in security which we are all experiencing ought to be taken care of, and the solutions provided from the local government level and then to the state level, and then we see just what can happen. But oftentimes these days, or generally, because of the fact that the federal government has a very strong hold on security, when something happens in a local government, everyone looks to the federal government, and it ought not to be so. But I digress, and accountability is the crux of the issue at this matter. I'm hoping, and I don't know, Chairman continues to remind us that hope is not a strategy. And that's why this report is important, because we all need to get involved. If people around my own age group and below are the ones who the future belongs to, then we all need to not make the mistake that our parents made, leaving government to those in government. We need to ask more questions of those in government. We need to get involved in government. We need not to shy away from it. It is not dirty. It is about our well-being. It's about our future. And we need to keep those questions coming. When we hear figures like this, we need to ask, just how is this percolated down in the states? How is it, translated to what the local governments will get, etc. How are they raising revenue? Because let's not forget, the local governments are also raising quite a substantial amount of revenue. And however, it is the taxes and levies they collect from marketplaces, radio licenses, etc., which they hound you and I for sometimes. We need to ask more questions in that regard, but at the danger of, talking too much, let me hand this back to Kimberly.
Well, before Kimberly comes in, I'm just wondering, Marco, when you say where we should all get involved, I think we need to be clear where, at what point to get involved. And that's at the local government level. For God's sake, can you imagine the distance between Badagry in Lagos and Ikeja, where the seat of government is? But there is a Badagry local government chairman. We should remind ourselves of that. That's the government that is closest to the people. How powerful are they in getting some of these things done? Maybe, okay, so we've looked at that report, states financial revenue. How about local government financial revenue? Wow, that report's going to be like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, they'll definitely do everything to dissuade people from getting involved. They'll tell you all sorts of things, but some of the images we've seen over the weekend about young people, not just weekend, up until today, yesterday, previously, Friday, but you see lots of young people just going out there to see how they can register. You can start from anywhere. That is a good thing to see. Go out there in droves, ask questions in droves, form a critical mass. That kind of narrative, that kind of action, whatever it is, wherever you are, you just cannot afford to live your life, because it's about your life. When we go for that cycle every 4 years.
Absolutely.
It determines what happens to your 4 years of your life. You can't afford to play games with it.
It lays the foundation for the rest of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why so many, when they feel there's no hope, then the next thing is they're out of the country. But anyways, we'll focus on some of the challenges that the country currently faces as the program progresses. But for now, let's delve right into the dailies today. Welcome back. Let's start with Vanguard newspaper. Banditry, guns and roses. No. Get guns, defend yourselves. Zamfara government tells citizens. So there'll be a big question about some of these things. Hopefully, you keep it here. You see and hear and get answers, hopefully. Asks CP to grant license to residents ready to own arms. Approves immediate closure of markets in 3 districts. Bans riding on motorbikes, selling of petrol. Directs security agents to shoot at sight violators of Okada ban. Whoa. I haven't seen or received directive. CPL Kana. Development signed that Nigeria becoming failed state, subscribe to lawyers. And then our massacre, I'm taken to bear sophisticated weapons. Page 10. Food for thought, I guess.
The question I'm going to ask is legality
of the sophisticated weapons? Well, sophisticated is just a word.
It's just
Up until you get to see the specifications, that's when you can then say, okay, question mark on that one. So it keeps going on. Yeah, you know, there's so much for you to just go ahead and yeah. Why anyhow says 5,000 megawatts July 1st target is unrealistic, ascribed to Genco. So then you can see what's on the back page. That message, you've seen it before. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Vanguard Sports there. AFCON qualifier. Pasero, thumbs up, Uyo. So there you go. That's Vanguard today.
The leadership newspapers this morning seems to share notes with the Vanguard with its lead story on its front page, killings. Zamfara, Benue ask residents to take up arms against bandits. Find the story on page 4 this morning. Niger Plateau warn of long-term implications. It's unlawful, dangerous, say lawyers. Zamfara people are fed up with everyday killings. Subscribe to the Gash. Defense headquarters, please keep mum. Find the rest of that story on page 4 of the paper this morning. Right under the nameplate, Abuja Kaduna train attack. Passengers shun Lagos-Ibadan rail corridor. Oh dear. Story is on page 7. Revenue drops below 50%. That and several other stories you'll find on the front page of the paper this morning. Marco?
Well, look at the Abuja Inquirer. I mean, perhaps the reason why you're seeing the headlines for leadership and also Vanguard newspaper, but look at that. Terrorists on rampage in Abuja communities. 4 killed, 23 kidnapped in Kwali, Gwagwalada, and Abaji. Another Catholic priest killed in Kaduna. You know, very disturbing stories which you see. I know that over the weekend, while taking a pretty long stroll on a Saturday morning, I noticed the presence of a helicopter hovering around, you know, the outskirts of the city center. I live out in a suburb. So, I mean, you could see the helicopter flying around, and there were questions as to what exactly was happening. But this was what we now heard happened much later in the day. 4 killed, 23 kidnapped in Kwali, Gwagwalada, and Abaji. There'll be questions there. Page 3 might be able to give you some answers. Look at what is happening on top of the nameplate. 2023, your only chance of being president is with us. That's APC to Kwankwanso. Reject APC, PDP to avert further disaster. That's from Kwankwanso. So page 3 is where you find details. Is that is the former governor of Kano State being wooed by the APC? Big questions. You find details on page 3 of the paper. Well, there is something to share at least. Look at this picture. It's worth 1,000 words there. President Muhammadu Buhari receiving a presentation of shoes made from recycled plastic waste from Yewande Adebowale of Salubata, a Nigerian startup. I mean, at least some people are doing what they can despite the constraints of the environment and, of course, the constraint on the environment as well. So trying to at least, you know, lift the burden of the environment. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Well, on to Daily Trust next. They also focus on security in Zamfara. Banditry. Mixed reactions as Zamfara okays arms for residents. Government mobilizes for 9,500 gun licenses. Quite a number. Self-defense directive, long overdue, but let's grab to residents. Call to bear arms, recipe for anarchy. Security experts.
We're hearing this, you know.
It's vote of no confidence in FG security agencies. So there you go. That's quite a lot there. So, well, that's it for Daily Trust, anyways.
New Telegraph seems to segue from that line of major stories this morning, and that's what you have on the front page. Ekure Madu, donors, passport states he's 21 years, says immigration. Well, maybe the word old is missing there. Validly issued in 2021, adds no correspondence from UK government yet. Human organ donation for fee benefits illegal. That's according to a nephrologist. Find the story on pages 7 and 26.
You know, I remember asking the question of the lawyer who was with us last time. So what happens if it turns out that that happens, the age? Will the case fall flat on his face? No one knows. I guess it's supposed to be tomorrow, isn't it? Tuesday.
Well,
wait, is it Tuesday? Is Tuesday, July? I'll double check that.
Today is 27th, so.
Okay, so still a while.
Okay. But that's the lead story on the front page. There are so many issues. Well, there are things that are known and things that are unfolding. I guess time will help us get into it all. Right beside the picture on the front page, strike. ASU, other unions not invited to last Thursday's meeting.
So there was a meeting, because we did ask ASU, are you in the know? Have you gotten any invite for that meeting? He says, no way.
And this story is ascribed to Labour Ministry.
Wow.
So, oh, by the way, right under that picture, insecurity Zamfara governor urges residents to take up arms, with a few riders and others shoot at sight on motorbike users as Bauchi tells citizens to defend themselves. Okay, so that's like 3 states now.
Asking for also shoot at sight.
Well, that's what you have on the front page. We've had about on the front pages this morning, Zamfara, Benue, and now Bauchi is telling citizens to defend themselves. Ondo Assembly moves to strengthen Amotekun with sophisticated weapons and technology. Outrage over Ibubagu as Uzodinma announces 10-day amnesty for bandits.
What does that mean?
The details you'll find on pages 3 and 7 as well as 8 this morning. On the front page of the New Telegraph, or in the inside pages of the New Telegraph. Okay.
Well, lots of stories to peruse through on the front page of New Telegraph. But Chimley, that question you asked about whether or not if the lad who went to seek asylum in the UK with the police, if it is proven that he is not the underage he says he is, well, there'll be lots of other questions, such as was he paid to come and donate an organ? And I think that's where the charge really lies, because the UK government frowns very strongly at donating an organ or giving an organ because of money. That's where you begin to tread in very dangerous and murky waters of organ harvesting. So there'll still be lots of questions in that regard, and I think that the investigation will be a pretty intense one. But let us see what it eventually unveils in that regard. The Guardian has this for you. ASU strike, job market dependency ratio worsen as youths remain idle. Graduates swear to false affidavits to meet up age requirements. Parents seek government intervention. So I think we all know of that era, and it's still an ongoing thing as a result of ASU strike, where when students finish, I mean, they're past the age of, maybe they're well into their 20s, and then they come out after NYC seeking jobs, and then they're told that, oh, you must be less than 21 years of age, or you must be 21 years or 22, and then you are wondering, but I was in school for, for 5-6 years. Thank God for ASU strike, or no thanks to ASU strike, as the case might be. You're wondering, how am I supposed to apply for this job? So you find students going to swear to false affidavits just to be able to get the age requirement needed for them to get these jobs. It is a very embarrassing situation that many have found themselves in this country of ours. And I think that employers of labor and even government will need to pay, maybe through the Ministry of Labor, will need to pay a little more attention to whether the requirements for those who are leaving school, and if at all we do any sort of data collection on them, you know, fits the kind of entry-level requirements for many, many organizations. Are they asking for too much? Are they making these children lie as a result of something that was no fault of theirs? You know, big questions in men. But, you know, people who say, it's not, it didn't start today. People continue to falsify their age in government circles, and it looks like children are learning from those that went before them. Look, page 6 will give you all of the details, and just in case you're wondering what the picture is about, not deterred by rain, residents waiting for their PVC registration and validation at the front of INEX office in Mushin in Lagos. So they're saying, we're not salt, we will not melt. We will stand under the umbrella and we'll collect our PVC. Today. Let's leave it there, or let's take a look at this headline. Trouble looms in power sector over activation of PPA. I don't know what PPA is, but you might want to read page 6 to get a little more detail on that. Let's leave it there for The Guardian.
So they're not salt, they'll not melt. Now they butter, they'll not melt. See when this heat comes. So they should start the heat in the kitchen.
That makes sense. Does it make them bricks?
No bricks for this purpose. That's fine. Whatever works, just do it. Look at the Nigerian Tribune. 2023, Southern leaders in tight spot over Atiku, Tinubu, Obi. Yeah, they're going to be in whatever tight spot they can, but the people are waiting in the wings. Nigerians just waiting to go out there and make their votes count. So that should be interesting. Really should be. Well, you've heard all the other headlines in some of the other dailies, so I might as well just skip them. But you may want to take a look at the back page of Tribune for sports lovers. Right there, you get a lot more. There you go. Head-scratching moments. Chelsea owner discussing Ronaldo. That's Tribune today.
Daily Independent is completely, you know, goes a completely different tangent from all the papers. Poor FX repatriation hurts Nigeria's international investment status. It's a quote. Find out who said it on the front page, continues on the inside pages. Analysts say foreign investors are averse to investing in the country. What does that mean, and why is that? Find the details on the inside pages. You know, we keep hearing that one, that, you know, companies that cannot repatriate their foreign exchange is going to hurt us. You know, what we heard recently about foreign airlines and all of that. But how far all of that goes, find the details on the inside pages. Right under the paper, under the picture on the front page, 73.8 million passengers passed through Nigerian airports in 5 years. How much does that amount to in Naira and Kobo? Find the details. Aircraft movement rises to 1,148,495. The details continue on the inside pages. And right above the nameplate, I'm still searching for my running mate. That's the Daily Independent this morning.
Okay, look, what about Daily Times as well? 2023, still,
That's it.
You just repeated that headline. I thought, isn't that what
it's like? It's like both papers, both editors compared notes. One just decided to make it a major.
There
news.
you go. You heard it. So that's the that's what you see there. But look at what's beneath that one. As VP, Atiku was bleeding.
Blessing.
Was what? Blessing, not mistake. Support group replies to Obasanjo. Oh, yeah, that had to do with, you know, his comments earlier.
Yeah.
When he said he made a mistake. So several responses. Of course, you'll expect at this period that they will just not let certain things fly or lie low. They will want to respond. In fact, more want to respond, as a matter of fact. So that's our Daily Times today.
Quick one at Nigerian News Direct this morning. What do you have on the front page? $350 million cabotage vessel financing, 20 years delay, a national shame ascribed to a minister, and I agree. Find the details on page 2 of the paper this morning.
You agree?
But of course it is. 20 years. Gosh. And several other stories on the front page. Ekweremadu, we follow due process in issuing Nigerian passport to Wamini, ascribed to immigration. Details and several other stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct today.
Okay, so there you go. Quite a lot for people to grapple with. Good thing that extent the registration process is on. So interesting images, willing to do what they want or what they can, what they think they should do to get themselves registered and prepare for voting. Don't forget, you can always send us your comments on whatever matter you see here. But we've got a lot to talk about this morning, so just give us a moment. We'll sink our teeth into it. Don't go away.
A source of worry and concern to the people and government of the state. Therefore, in order to deal decisively with the situation in our respective communities, Zamfara state government has no option than to take the following measures. 1. Government has henceforth directed individuals to prepare and obtain lawful weapons to defend themselves against the bandits. Although there is an existing law that bans issuance of license to obtain such weapons, people wishing to obtain the weapon are advised to fill forms that will be distributed to each of the 19 emirates of the state, and enough number of such forms has so far been provided for distribution to people wishing to obtain lawful weapons that will be used in defending themselves.
All right, so that is what we're going to start up with here today. We'd like to hear from Zamfara State Commissioner who made that statement to see, because already, of course, you expect lots of reactions, mixed ones, as the ladies like to describe them, concerning that directive for residents. And you see, what, 9,500 odd licenses this year being prepared for it. So it's going to be quite interesting.
It is already getting interesting. Remember that member of the House of Representatives on the floor of the House that said he would admonish or advocate that Nigerians should defend themselves, get guns or weapons or whatever to defend themselves, of course. And you also saw that one on the front that said sophisticated weapons to defend, themselves, in the Southwest, and the questions. And you said, well, the devil is in the details.
Yeah, because the thing is, we know, I think it might be safe for me to say, we all, if I could commit that fallacy, sweeping generalization, which could be right in this case. I mean, it's not like when we say we the people. This is saying we all know that we have a security challenge on our hands. But how do we address it seems to be where there are dissenting voices, where we all don't seem to agree. But there is a challenge and we need to address it. So perhaps Zamfara will let us know perhaps the backstory, what informs this, if you know some of them already, you may, and then how the reactions, how they're coping with some of these things, and several other questions, and the wider implication. And that honorable gentleman you spoke about, we will hear from him as well. So
it will be very interesting to find out exactly the how, because without engaging the people in the process, we are literally what you call sitting ducks. And we just, it comes with a lot of caution. There are those who are saying it's illegal and all of that. So I'm, like you, would be looking forward to an interesting conversation.
So for now, we will get to hear from Zamfara. So don't worry about that. You might have a little bit, but we'll hear a little bit more. But in the meantime, perhaps we should just go over to Abuja. We've got some guests there who will speak on the same subject matter. Markwe.
Indeed, Abuja coming in with the source this morning. It's a very serious matter. That's what we're discussing, a matter of life and death. And we have two gentlemen to weigh in on the issue. Barrister Ibrahim Jibril Gusau is a member of the PDP. You're welcome to Sunrise Early this morning. And
I'm pleased to be here this morning.
Thank you for coming. Honorable Adejoro Adeogun is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence, and he's now hidden where he stands on whether or not citizens should be able to obtain arms. You're welcome to the program this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I was about to say, is this some sort of validation for you, the fact that the Zamfara state government is now asking the citizens to go and obtain licenses and purchase arms?
Well, I mean, we need to, to come to this someday, and it's come. So we should have taken action much earlier and try to set a process, put a process in place so that, legitimate citizens, people who have, who can prove to the security agencies that they're genuine, that they, can be trusted with weapons, are allowed access to weaponry. But right now, what the Zamfara state government has done is more like coming home to understand that at the end of the day, citizens should be given a right to defend themselves. But because it's a panic action now, it may be difficult for, those who should take the action to be able to take the action in good, in good time for it to be effective.
So you consider this a panic action?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay. I do not know how this has hit you, Barrister. Did it come to you as a surprise? The state government asking the citizens to get license and obtain be able to obtain arms to defend themselves. This is not the first time, though, that we're hearing a governor ask his citizens to defend themselves. But this is the first time we're hearing a government asking citizens to actively obtain licenses and get ready to defend themselves. How did this come to you?
It's a root shock. Root shock in the sense that it's what the governor is trying to do will only amount to anarchy in Zamfara State. I, as an indigene of Zamfara State, I am touched by what is happening in Zamfara State because some of my families are involved. I've lost loved ones in the past, and recently, about 29 of our youths were kidnapped on their way from Sokoto to attend a wedding. They had to contribute money amongst themselves. And the current gubernatorial candidate aspirant of PDP in Zamfara State had to support them to ensure those who were kidnapped were freed. The governor has been very nonchalant about this issue a long time ago. And I'm surprised that he's calling for indigents of Zamfara in a state where there is abject poverty, in a state where there is high level of illiteracy. It is surprising that the governor will be calling for people of the state to arm themselves. It is purely a call for anarchy. He can emulate what the governors in the Southwest did by establishing a security outfit, get a license for this outfit, and ensure these people go there in the forest and engage the bandits. In Zamfara State, we know these bandits, we know their parents, we know their grandparents. We know how to get across to them. The governor once invited one of the notorious bandits called Turji to the governor, to the government house. He gave him money, he gave him vehicle. What was he doing? Empowering the bandits even more. By the provision of Section 14B of the Constitution, it is the responsibility of the government to provide security to the life and properties of the people. For him to now say, I can't do it, you should arm yourself, shows that the governor has failed. I think that is my take.
You know, there are those who have said, I mean, a number of reactions have rated this particular decision as can be expected. You've just heard one of them coming from Zamfara State. You have also said that you consider this a panic action. But part of, for some people, it's more fundamental than that. They believe that, as he's just pointed out, that if government exists to protect the security of lives and property, and the fundamental job of government is security of lives and property, they believe that what the Zamfara state government has done is surrendered more or less to the bandits, and it's outsourcing its own responsibility to the people of Zamfara state. Do you read it that way?
I think beyond the politics of PDP, APC that my brother here tried to play, we need to understand that Governor Matawale was originally in PDP. And while he was in PDP, the first thing he did was, like he said, decided he will engage the militants, the bandits. He engaged them, invited them, tried to see if he could do things. So you could see he's been trying this. But the real issue is we actually don't have what I call doctrines for dealing with issues in Nigeria. There should be a standard operating procedure for everybody. You know that where you have issues of terrorism, this is the way it's done. But what is happening in Nigeria is that it's trial and error. One person is trying this here, one person is trying that here. So we really don't seem to have a central control to handle issues of terrorism. Because it's terrorism in Zamfara, it's terrorism in the South, you have issues of terrorism everywhere. You can't have different standards in all these places. And unfortunately, you know, the police is unable to cope because they don't have the numbers, they don't have the weaponry, they don't have the training. And what we've been trying to do all this while is to see if we could raise the level of the police and then security agencies, at least to be able to improve on issues of early warning intelligence, which has failed us here. So if we're able to get enough early warning intelligence, at least the police will be able to act and then we'll be able to support them. We're not getting that. So what you have in that situation is that governors now start trying, like, can they be even like mechanics? They try this, try that, they do that. These guys are not trained for this
Well,
purpose.
this is part of what they're doing. I mean, they're trying just one more thing. This is another thing in the mix.
Yeah.
Now, you have interpreted a lot of what he said from the prism or from the bias that he is of the PDP, and perhaps this is some APC-PDP politics. But those whom I have quoted to you, I mean, because I read some reaction over the weekend, are ordinary citizens of Zamfara who are educated enough to know that, you know, this could have implications for the future. And they are also very versed in what the Constitution says about what the responsibility of government is. So they say there is some attempt to outsource, you know, the crux, the main purpose of government. That if government has outsourced everything, I mean, you are your own, you provide your own water, your own electricity, then you have to provide your own security as well by getting guns. Is that what government is saying?
No, no, no. You see, basically, you know, drawing attention to the political slant is that the error started from when the man was even in PDP. The moment you start engaging bandits, you're asking them to provide them tools for them to expand their scope. That's what he did. He made that error. So I'm saying that his error is not because of his political party. His error is that he does not have the skill to handle what the responsibility has been given.
No, the error I'm pointing out, I mean, not the error, but the bias I'm pointing out. So you're not quite answering my question, which is whether when government asks people, citizens, to get arms, is it outsourcing its fundamental responsibility to the people, which is saying, look, people, I cannot protect you. Please, by all means, go and get your guns and get ready to protect yourself.
But that's the obvious,
is that what government is saying?
You see, government has failed. What's basically happened is Zamfara state government basically told the whole world, we cannot protect you, protect yourself. But do citizens have a right to protect themselves? They do. And that's why I clamor for citizens to have the right to have access to legitimate weapons, not illicit weapons.
So in that case, should we still have a government? Those are the questions that people are asking. If this can be interpreted as that, I mean, if this can be said to be government saying, look, we cannot protect you anymore, what legitimate right does government have to say they're still government?
What is the alternative to having a government, having anarchy? Are we asking that we should have Somalia on our hands? You see, government is a necessity. Good governance is a necessity. We may not have what we want, but then we don't look at the fact that, okay, because we're not where we should be, we should go backward. We need government, we need good governance. There's going to be an election in 2023. Nigerians will have a right to choose good governance. I think we need to look at it from that perspective. Do we think there's going to be magic overnight? There won't be, because things are pretty bad. They're very, very bad. But then it will take a long time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be solved in 2023. It won't be solved in 2024. The errors were made in the past in that we did not take action when we should take action. We see right now are not even making efforts to ensure that we deliver on delivering early warning intelligence to at least help the security agencies to get their jobs done.
Let's go to Lagos now. I know that we have a few more guests on Zoom, and I know that my colleagues have questions for you. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, we've got Ibrahim Dosara, who is the Commissioner for Information, Zamfara State. He joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program. Well, it is that directive that the state has taken that is raising a lot of concern. So could you tell us, how did the state arrive at this point?
Okay, thank you and good morning. The issue of directive became necessary to the government of Zamfara State. What we are doing is to give the protection to lives and property of people, which is the basic function of government. We have been trying so many ways and processes to ensure that people are secured. If people could remember at the early stage of this government, like many of the people who spoke earlier said, we engaged the bandit in dialogue where we had very huge success. Zamfara State was over 9 months without an incident of insecurity, not until when conflict entrepreneurs came in to sabotage that process and scuttle the success we had. And the governor, being somebody who is on top of issues concerning security, who has the security of lives and of people at his heart, also gave the bandits ultimatum of 6 months within which to embrace the peace process. And when they refused, the governor embarked again on a larger scale of fight against the bandit, where he ordered for shutting down communications. He also closed down markets, roads, and restricted vehicular movements, a process that also helped in reducing the scale of armed banditry in the state. If people could recall, before he came on board as the governor of the state, he met very, very ugly situation where almost 200 people, 100 people are being killed on a daily basis. But today, the story has been changed. We have...
Mr. Dosara, before you progress, I mean, concerning how the state got to this point, Mr. Gusau lays the blame squarely at the feet of the government, saying mistakes were made. The government engaged these people in the first place. You invited them to government house. You know their families. You know the members. And so coming up with this is a bit of a surprise, because there are several other options perhaps he suggests that could have been taken, as opposed to saying, all right, go get guns. Because they wonder, what happened to equipping the police to ensure that they are capable to rout those people? If you know the people, you know them, why this method?
You see, forget about Gusau. He is politicizing security, which we shouldn't mind. We don't mind about Gusau. He was even suggesting that we set up a structure of security forces that can fight this. We invite him and challenge him to come and be the Commandant General. We have such a structure on ground. If he is truly having Zamfara security at heart, let him come and be the Commandant General to do this. But all we have been doing is to ensure that we explore reliable source of, or rather process of bringing security to the people. So like you mentioned, that why don't we empower police or do whatever? You know, security is in the hands of the federal government. What Zamfara State or other state governments are doing is to complement the efforts of the federal government in providing security. And you know, security is not just the responsibility of government. Everybody has a responsibility
I beg your pardon, Honorable Desara and Mr. Desara. You know, the thing about that is, concerning the police and empowering the police, yes, we know the responsibilities of government when it comes to security, but if the police is not capable, if they don't have that capacity to rein these people in, what gives you the guarantee that when you then assuming there were 9,500, as the report said, that you're preparing licensing for 9,500 people, how do you then think that if these men go rogue, you can then handle them?
No. You see, the process that we set in is a clean process. We started by saying, let people wishing to obtain legitimate weapons come to fill the forms. They are to be scrutinized and screened at their localities by their traditional rulers to ensure that no wrong hand or somebody with criminal records are given the license to obtain a gun. And don't forget, only 2 people are allowed to issue license on the basis of qualification, the Mr. President and then the Inspector General of Police. And what we said is when we fill these forms, we take them to the Commissioner of Police to do his own investigations and also screen the people before he forwarded to Inspector General of Police, who will then finally consider approving and giving the license. So what we are doing, we are following legitimate process to make sure that our people are given the legitimate weapons to protect themselves.
Okay.
Don't forget, we took this decision because the rainy season has commenced and the farmers want to go back to their farms to produce food for people, for food security in the community and in the nation. And also following recent upsurge in some parts of the state where the criminals have been attacking people almost on a daily basis.
Well, Mr. Desara, on that, just a quick one on that. If you can, take us through a little further on the process. There are a number of issues. Just 1 second. There are a number of issues that Mr. Gusau has raised, which I would love for you to respond to before we go back to him. But tell us more about the process of people securing, guns, the legitimacy of it, because there are those who are asking questions as to whether or not it is legal for anyone to get guns in any part of Nigeria for themselves. Take us through the legitimacy of that. Take us through the agencies of government, whether federal or state, that have to go, that people who want to secure guns legitimately have to go through. I understand, for instance, that for you to be able to get that done, your mental state has to be in place, and then there needs to be some kind of background check on you to be sure that you have no connection with people who have already, as Chamberlain said, gone rogue. Take us through that process.
Yes, like I told you, we are not giving guns or planning to give guns to anybody, but we are planning to give, position to people to protect themselves, because it is allowed in a situation like a more warlike. You understand? Our situation is like a more warlike situation in Zamfara State. And like I told you, we have 5 local governments where this issue is becoming deteriorating. And it is the reason why we said, okay, since we have tried so many ways to curtail this insecurity, some are being sabotaged by conflict entrepreneurs. Okay, the best option now is to allow people to defend themselves, especially in their farms, because it is rainy season, like I mentioned earlier, and the people need to go back to provide food for their families. Government has been doing everything to ensure that it secure lives of people and their property. And on the project we're talking about, like I said, the Nigerian Constitution says only 2 people can grant license to obtain legitimate weapons in Nigeria. That is Mr. President and the Inspector General of Police. And now that we have an existing ban on the issuance of license to obtain or to possess legitimate weapons, we are in consultation with the presidency and the high security commands in Nigeria to ensure that permission is given to the IGP to issue license to qualify people of Zamfara State who wants to possess weapons to defend themselves. And this is what Mr. Saying.
Okay, just a minute. You'll talk more in just a moment. Don't worry. Just hang on a minute. We'll let you talk a little bit further. But we need to get to Mr. Gusau and get a response from him. So, Mr. Gusau, he says, look, desperate times require desperate measures. What is wrong in people protecting themselves?
Sure. My take is there's nothing wrong in people protecting themselves, but my fear is knowing the terrain of a state like Zamfara with high level of illiteracy and high level of poverty. The Honorable Commissioner Ibrahim Dusara talks about trying to get responsible people in the state who are going to be given license to arm themselves. My question is, where do these local farmers get the money to purchase these ammunitions we're talking about? Who is going to provide the money for them? That is my take. It is not an issue of politics. It is an issue of trying to do the right thing for our home state. I am from Zamfara. I can't just pick up my car and travel down home because anything could happen along the way. Just recently, some group of boys, men who went to Sokoto. Sokoto is a 2 hours drive from Gusau, the state capital. But they were kidnapped. And the government pretend as if nothing is happening. These people had to contribute money to get their freedom.
Mr. Gusau,
my take is we have prominent Zamfara indigenes who are retired police officers, army generals. Why can't the state government call them together and think of a lasting solution to this problem?
All right, so concerning your first point, where you say...
That is my concern.
Concerning the first part, where you say, where will they get money to procure these arms? Does that mean, assuming they get funds to procure the arms, will that then justify this directive?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So my take is, why can't the government set up a security agency and purchase legitimate arms for them? Let them go and fight these people. You can't give arms to people and you expect to you don't expect to be you should say there won't be anarchy in the state. It's not possible. These are people who are very on land. There's high rate of illiteracy in the state. That is my concern.
Okay. Honorable, let me ask you, what your take is on this, conversation that we are having, because as he said, the concerns are most certainly there, facing us squarely. High level of illiteracy, high level of poverty, a high level of unemployment. And the question, Chamberlain asked the other time about the parameters for getting these people, or rather permitting some people needs to be clear. So I'm wondering what your take is on the process. You're a lawmaker, so you probably have an idea of how these things should be done, because there are questions as to the process. You would remember, of course, that just recently, not too long ago, the US the entire nation had to review their own gun laws and all of that. So one is wondering, how will that play out for a first-timer nation as Nigeria in this kind of space?
Well, I think I need for us to separate two things. The issue of right and access to weaponry by law-abiding citizens, and then the issues in Zamfara and the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. I think I need us to separate that. I advocate for Nigerians to have the right to bear weapons, but Zamfara is a peculiar case. The issues we have in Nigeria, you have issues of terrorism. What is described in Zamfara state is even similar to an insurgency. I heard the commissioner saying there are 5 local governments that they've lost control of. That's more like an insurgency. And so it is not something that the citizens will just wake up, harm themselves, and combat. It has to be done legitimately using legitimate law enforcement agencies. And you know, this idea of establishing state security outfit, I really don't buy into it, because I happen to have worked in a place where they face issues of militancy, and the then governor in that state took an action to assess the police. You can actually, the funds you're going to invest in buying this, you know, weapons for these people, you can invest it in the police. You can offer security training to the police. You can offer logistic support to the police and the military and all that, and help them to combat. What you use the local citizens to do is to procure intelligence, to show them the way, to give them neighborhood and, you know, local knowledge, local understanding of the terrains and all that. It will help. But you see, when we get everybody to acquire weapons at this point in time, what happens afterwards? About way of communities where what they're doing now is they're buying weapons to protect themselves. Yes, somebody is going to serve as an armorer. Somebody is going to stockpile these weapons and keep. When this problem is over, what will happen? Because we need to be careful not to try to solve one problem today and create another one tomorrow. But I think that's what we're about to do. That's one of the parts of creating multiple problems for this country that we don't know where it's going to end.
So we'll get the commissioner to respond to some of these in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back, Mr. Dosara. Some of the concerns raised there, I'm sure you heard from Mr. Gusau and Honorable Adejoro, who themselves also have concerns which they have raised. But in addition to the response that you may want to give to what they've said, for those who think that this is a desperate move on the part of the state government and that it's not well thought out, because they wonder. Yes, you say you're not giving guns to just anybody. You want those who are qualified to get the guns. And they also wonder, even at that, looking at the framework, for instance, there will always be chances that someone might misuse their firearm, whether or not they legitimately got it. We see that happen several times in different areas. Things like the measures to investigate and find out people are properly policed, they don't misuse all of those. That framework is not in place. So that's why some other persons think we may just have a challenge with quote unquote qualified people getting access to guns.
Okay, thank you so much. Even though there was interruption, I couldn't get most of the questions you asked. But like you said, response to people who spoke earlier, Mr. Gusau has said that people have no money to buy the weapons we are trying to help them to buy. You see, we didn't say everybody in Zamfara state must buy gun or weapons. What we said is people who could afford, people who have interest to provide those weapons that are legitimately allowed to defend themselves. That's what we said. We didn't say everybody, every Zamfara person must get a gun or must get weapons to defend themselves. We said those who could afford and those who have interest. It is not by force. And two, he was asking of whether we should have a strong force comprising a kind of legion, we have this structure on ground. We have recruited, like I said earlier, 300 persons that we gave nomenclature as community protection guards. And these people have been working. 300 were recruited in each of the 19 emirate councils of the state. And yesterday, His Excellency ordered for a recruitment of additional 200 persons to join the community protection guards. And that's why I said if Gusau is not politicizing the security, we challenge him to come and be the Commandant General of this force we have established. It is comprising of including retired commissioners of police, retired captains in the military, and they are working, and we are preparing them. They are working with the security agencies in Zamfara state, and they were given training on weaponry handling, human rights concerns, and every other issues that has to do with the protection of lives and property. So if Gusau is not politicizing issues, we challenge him to come and be Commandant General of that force, so that he can help Zamfara people secure lives and property.
Well, Mr. Sarah, just on still talking about Mr. Gusau, one of the things that he said earlier, you know, we speeded the question the other time, but I'd like you to address it squarely. Chimilin asked you earlier, what if some go rogue? Now, as you said earlier, there have been attempts by the state government to engage the bandits to desist from what they're doing. What happened to that agreement? What happened to that conversation? What made that effort of government fail? And what is it that makes you so sure that these bandits that you want to attack through the citizens will not buy over some of the citizens that you are arming or empowering to arm themselves against these bandits? What happened to that conversation about them down in tools?
Maybe you couldn't listen when I said Zamfara state was 9 months period without an incident of insecurity because of that dialogue process. But the issue of conflict entrepreneurs, and conflict entrepreneurs are found in almost all the sectors, including the security, including the politicians, including even journalists, people who get what from the crisis. So they supported that success we had initially. And the government, the government under the leadership of His Excellency, not relent in its efforts, we came up with another solution, which was shutting down the networks. I made this explanation earlier.
Well, Mr. Dasara, have you then been able to engage these conflict entrepreneurs as you previously engaged the bandits so that they can desist from this act?
Well, do you know them? The issue is, do you know them? Somebody who's trying to sabotage you, you can't know them. You can't know. So what we did was we try as much as possible to give ultimatum to the bandits, and after which we again engage them in another way by confronting them through shutting down the networks and closing down markets and restricting vehicular movement, which has seriously incapacitated the bandits. And that has brought a lot of success in the fight against the bandits. So you can see the government is not relenting. It's trying in so many ways very hard to ensure that the people are protected. The concerns of the government is, how do we protect our people? How do we save lives and property of the people? That is what we are trying to do.
Well, Honorable Commissioner, there is a saying, an African saying, that it's only the thief that knows how to find another thief's path on a rock. And I'm wondering if you know, the bandits whom governments, the state government succeeded with previously could be useful in finding these people that who you said you don't know, cannot be found. Has there been such an effort? What did it produce?
Well, what we engage those people who surrendered is to help us to secure kidnapped victims. And the Zamfara state government is well known and should be praised for its efforts in securing kidnapped victims. Not only people from Zamfara state, even in other states, His Excellency has helped in securing the release of abducted persons. So that is how we utilize the bandits who have surrendered, who joined the dialogue and respected. Like I told you, some were made to, disrespect the dialogue through the conflict entrepreneurs, which I said we don't know. And we are asking whoever knows people who are sabotaging us should do so. And
but Commissioner, how did you know that they are conflict entrepreneurs?
Sorry?
How did the government know that they are conflict entrepreneurs?
Yeah, of course, the people who make a lot of gains out of the crisis. Let me give you examples. There are people who take foodstuff to the bandits in the forest. There are people who supply them with the drinks, alcohol, and drugs. There are people who supply them with petroleum. There are people who also supply them even with women. So these are the conflict entrepreneurs we are talking about. And we have the informants who always tell them, go to social community, there are a lot of money there, or there are a lot of cattle. So these are the conflict entrepreneurs we are talking about. And many of them engage in sabotaging the efforts of the government in succeeding in the fight against bandits.
You know, listening to some of those analyses you've given, identifying some key things that people do for these bandits, many will then ask, wait a minute, if you have those very, very key details, you should have one or two people who will be arrested who knows that these people do this for these other bandits. Doesn't government know any one of them whatsoever?
If you have been following our statements in the past, we said we make so many arrests and many people are undergoing judicial
So that
process.
means you know them. They're known. Yeah, it was because you said they were not known. So many just wondered that, but wait a minute, some are in custody, so they should know.
Some of these things, you have to keep them in secret.
Okay.
It's not everything you discuss about security on media organizations.
We understand that. We understand. Yeah, so, but when you say you don't know, it gives a blanket suggestion that nothing is known or people have not been arrested. So just wanted to clarify that bit. But
that is why I told you nothing you have to discuss on security, about security on media.
Well, Commissioner, you know, the police say they don't have any of such communication from the Zamfara states. Have they been informed concerning this directive to procure arms?
I didn't say we have already communicated to them. What we said is that we prepared forms and sent to the Emirates, where the traditional rulers, the locals, will do the background checking and allow those who have interest to fill the form, from where we take it and send to the police. So this is what we said.
Okay.
We didn't say we have communicated to the police about this. What we said, this is a process we have put in place, and we have started the process, and we are moving towards ensuring that we are successful in what we are planning.
Honorable Commissioner, some of the analysis that you made the other time points to one thing, and there are those who believe that the reason, part of the reason, a fundamental reason we have a high level of insecurity in the country is because some governors do not allow the local government systems to function efficiently. all insecurity is local, and that references the local government system significantly. What is the body language of Zamfara State, the Zamfara State government, in empowering the local government systems to run as the government that they ought to be, in order to be the first line of defense to checkmate this banditry?
In the first place, I don't even believe that governors are responsible for the insecurity. You see, let us understand the basic and fundamental issues about security in Nigeria. One, we have paucity of funds across the states. Two, we have shortage of manpower among the security personnel. Three, we have diversity of insecurity across the nation, so much that the little manpower we have in the security sector cannot cope with this. And sadly, like I told you, I am still repeating that we have large number of conflict entrepreneurs, even including...
Mr. Dosara, the question is around the local government system in Zamfara State.
I think you asked question, you asked twin questions. And this is the first question I'm talking to you, that even outside Nigeria, we have conflict entrepreneurs, those who supply weapons to Nigerians, and they will never like to have Nigeria have peace. So understand this factor. Secondly, the local government system you are talking about. In Zamfara State, we have all it takes to put the local government function effectively. We have committees, we have security meetings all over, and we give them funds that they use to ensure that they provide security within the localities. We have a network of systems, which, like I said, we cannot just be sitting down on media and start talking about, because it has to do with the security. So it is not what people are accusing the governor or government in this regard.
Well, Mr. Dosara, part of the answer that I was hoping, some perspectives that I'm hoping to get, from this is concerning this whole conversation around local government autonomy and all of that, because the local government systems should get money directly from the federal allocation straight into their coffers. Now, that speaks to the proposed local government autonomy, financial autonomy, and administrative autonomy that I also believe, and perhaps by the wisdom of the National Assembly, that if the local governments have administrative and financial autonomy, they would be able to take some proactive measures that the state government will only support. They would be at the forefront of ensuring security in their own localities, using the traditional institutions that you also referenced the other time directly. It's worked in Nigeria before. Is it something that the state government is willing and expecting to support the House of Assembly in doing, ensuring an autonomous administrative and financial autonomy for the local governments in Zamfara State?
Well, you see, what we have in Zamfara State is a common understanding between the local governments and the state government. We have so many demands in terms of infrastructure across the local governments. And what we do is to sit down at the end of the month and look at what resources we have and what other demands do we have from the local governments. And we go by the budget, the provision, and establish those structures and infrastructures that are being demanded by the people in the localities. So we have a clean system here. We are not just depriving the local governments from using their funds to do what they want. And we allow them to bring what their people are requiring, the most fundamental, and we look at them. Like we said, security is one of them, and we have been doing...
So, Commissioner, we need to bring other people, but just quickly, how do you think this will work? Because no matter the forms and the licenses they give, they cannot get beyond the dang gone. These bandits or entrepreneurs, as you say, Some of them use AK-47, AK-49. How can a Dane gun face an AK-47? It's like taking a knife to a gunfight.
You see, there is what we call psychological warfare. When I said, okay, Chamberlain is having a gun in his house, I would be afraid to just come to Chamberlain's house to attack him because I don't know the type of gun he's having. We didn't say these are the type of weapons we are providing for the people, but what we are doing is to try as well create psychological warfare among the bandits.
Let's get across to the former AIG of police to get his quick perspective, Mr. Wilson Nalego. He joins us via phone this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program. You heard all that's been said about getting legitimate or qualified people in Zamfara to get guns, and they will apply to the police. What do you think of this?
So, it's a pleasure for me to join you. Well, I can understand the situation that people of Zamfara State face because of the rampaging bandits. But I think, I don't know what impact citizens, almost 9,500 in the 19 Emirates, can add to the security situation in Zamfara State. Particularly that since 2007, I'm not aware that any commissioner of police has issued any firearm. I'm not aware that any commissioner of police has issued any firearm license because since there is an embargo, even as commissioner of police in 3 states, I don't remember signing any firearm. Most
Why?
It is because I think since 2007, if I'm correct, we've not been issuing granting firearm licenses. Even the one that we grant is for gaming, for hunting, not for self-defense. And I don't think the law makes the Firearms Act makes provision for governor to give order for citizens or to commissioner of police to grant firearm license. I think that is within the president through the IG.
All right.
So if we have the automatic rifle firearms, but for gaming, which is the double-barrel shotgun, the Inspector General of Police has given that order to commissioners of police. But since 2007, I am aware that fresh licenses are not being granted. I don't know if there is any development.
Okay.
So I don't. The commissioner of police, if some of us were commissioners of police right from time, even from 2007, no license have been granted.
But Mr. Nalego, you get your point, but does that mean that it cannot be granted now because the government of Zamfara State says they are talking with the president and with the IGP that this is desperate times and things need to change?
Yeah, I recognize that these are desperate times. But like I told you earlier, and you have also re-emphasized that it's the president through the Inspector General of Police. So if the governor has applied to the president and given some names and proper background check has been carried out, then the IG may direct the Commissioner of Police, Zamfara State, to grant licenses to such persons.
Okay, but since 2007, has the force been faced with this kind of scenario wherein the state says, yes, we want people who are qualified to get arms?
Take that again, sorry.
You say since 2007, no license has been issued. And I'm asking...
No, I was Commissioner of Police for 2014 in the FCT and other places. I did not sign any...
Yeah, I'm asking, since that time, or while you were in service,
yes,
did you face a scenario such as this Zamfara State request or directive?
No, I am not saying that the governor shouldn't have made a request. I am saying in terms of process, in terms of procedure,
okay,
that unless the president has granted approval, and then through the Inspector General of Police, because the president approves, especially if it is for automatic firearm. But if it is double-barrel shotgun, which is not self-loading, then the IG can direct the Commissioner of Police. But to the best of my knowledge, the ban on issuance of firearm license, especially for gaming, I am not sure that that ban has been lifted. But you can check on that. And then, like, the point I want to make again is, I know that it is only the president that can grant license for any citizen to bear automatic firearm. But for gaming, double-barrel shotgun, the IG through the commissioners of police of the respective states. But there has been a ban because to curb proliferation of firearm, and everything should be done to take weapons from non-state actors that possess such arms illegally, because that is also the reason. Because if for example, the Commissioner of Police can only grant license for firearms for gaming or for hunting, I don't know. I'm not sure that can confront people who are armed with RPGs, rocket propelled grenades, GPMG, AK-47. But I think I read through the document that Zamfara state government prepared, and the number 2, getting intelligence and all this. So I think, but because I don't know if that can improve the security situation when you have about 9,000, what training are you going to give them? How long is their training going to take? How are you going to check their biometrics for 9,500 people to be sure that they've not been involved in any violence, either armed robbery, kidnapping, and all that? It's a huge job. But I think the process is from this president to the IG, who will instruct the respective commissioner of police. But I don't know if the Inspector General of Police has lifted the ban.
Okay. All right, Mr. Naligu, we appreciate your points this morning. Thank you very much indeed for your time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so part of the, I guess hopefully the commissioner may also respond to that. But before that, we need to get to Abuja. Who knows? Can there be a copycat directive from some other states in the country? How would that be handled? Let's get to Abuja. Markwe?
Well, big questions, Chamberlain, but let me ask Barrister Ibrahim Jibril Goso about the situation we currently have on our hands. Some people will say that it is tough enough to warrant that, you know, people be asked to get arms to protect themselves. You don't agree?
Thank you very much, Maupe. I don't agree. When you look at a state like Zamfara, the state has a lot of problem in its hand already. When you look at the level of illiteracy, will you give arms to illiterate who doesn't understand how to use it? Will you give arms to illiterate who doesn't understand how to use it?
Yes.
The answer is no.
So, Honorable Adejare has talked about how the situation in Zamfara is peculiar, and maybe this is a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, even for him who has advocated that citizens be allowed to bear arms, he thinks that, you know, Zamfara, you're here, so I hope I'm not misrepresenting your ideas, but I think that you're saying that the situation in Zamfara is a little different, and so maybe it should be, you know, examined a little further. But for ordinary citizens, I mean, almost every day right now, a lot of Nigerians are living in fear. I mean, just here in the Federal Capital Territory, we understand that 4 farmers were killed over the weekend, and over 20 of them kidnapped in their farms right here in the FCT. People in Niger State, I think it was at the beginning of this year, were told that over 200 people died in less than 3 weeks, and many more were kidnapped. So people have been living in, you know, in fear in different parts of the country. You do not think that it is time that indeed maybe this this situation concerning arms and ammunition be liberalized, and those who can protect themselves, let them get the guns and protect themselves. You don't agree?
I don't agree. This shows the failure on the part of the government. Just recently, United States of America...
Let us, I hate to say this, but if that is the situation, if government has failed, because if people are dying on a daily basis, there are questions as to the capacity of government. Isn't that correct?
You're right.
So if you, as a citizen, know that you can get a gun to protect yourself, you wouldn't take the option?
Well, I don't think taking the option is the solution, because when you take the option, whenever the government or you want to do anything, you should think about the consequence of what you are going to do. If every Nigerians are allowed to arm themselves, I'm afraid to say the country will be plunged into a lot of insecurities, crisis, and here and there.
Is it any worse than what we're already in? Is a crisis that we're...
It will be worse than this. I'm sorry to use the word. It will be worse than this.
What do you foresee happening? Because what they're saying is that citizens who have the means, who have the temperament, who have been psychologically checked, and who have shown themselves to be responsible citizens of society should be allowed to own weapons. I mean, right now, if you go to our different homes, I'm sure we've all put measures in place to protect ourselves. Some measures, you know, put in place, which we did not have many years ago. So if a gun is one of the latest measures, why would you say that citizens should not be allowed to have that?
Nigeria will belong into what I term as guerrilla republic. Just like what is happening in Libya. When you go to Libya, you can purchase arms on the street. Most of the preparation of arms.
Libya is a different situation, because there is no government in Libya. There is no government in Libya. Let's take an example of the United States today.
Good.
Yes, they have their issues with guns, but citizens are allowed to procure weapons to protect themselves. It's a right protected by law. In fact, the Constitution of the United States. So if that is the situation, what they say is that this is about deterrence. You don't just go to somebody's house anyhow to go and attack the person, or, you know, there's some level of deterrence. And this is where you even have the police responding effectively like that. There is still that level of protection at the personal level. What's wrong with that for Nigeria?
Nigeria is not United States of America. When you look at our level of advancement, it's different. That is one. Two, even in the United States of America, where it is allowed, the whole thing is getting out of hand. And the government now had to promulgate a law on gun control. So if you look at it very well, you cannot compare the system in America with Nigeria. Nigeria is faced with a lot of diversity. Ethnic, religion, even regional, even states. You go to some states, they will tell you you are not an indigenous of this state, you should move back to your state. So we have a lot of diversity in Nigeria that could lead to anarchy, lawlessness. We're already battling with lawlessness in Nigeria from all facets. The security, the people, the government, we're already battling with insecurity. But if you add that to the problem in Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, the country will be plunged into war.
Have you taken a look at that, Honorable? Have you thought about that? The fact that, you know, he said Nigeria is not the United States. I was tempted to say that, but we try to copy the United States. But he's also listed very seriously the fact that, you know, there are so many points of conflict within our country, and that right now, you know, we seem to be in a state of flux, and that, you know, the too many potential for conflict could actually aggravate things and maybe prevent reason from prevailing. Is this something you've thought about, even as you ask that we consider this third option of allowing citizens, you know, be able to bear arms, you know, who have gone through a series of regulations and tests?
Well, thank you. I'm glad that he's a lawyer. All I would ask of him is to read the Firearms Act, Cap 28 Law Federation of Nigeria, and you see that we actually do have a law in Nigeria that allows citizens to bear weapons. It's there, so it's not a new regulation. What's been done is that this law has been operated arbitrarily. Like you heard that the AIG analogous said, that the AIG suspended issuance. The AIG does not have the power to suspend any law in Nigeria. So it's that kind of arbitrariness that we're trying to eliminate. People have rights. Now, we tend to deceive ourselves as well. Do people obtain weapons now illegitimately? They do, every day. You see, the people who are attacking, who are involved in criminality, banditry, terrorism, and all that, they acquire weapons. They buy them on the streets. The weapons are available. Now, the only reason people who are law-abiding are not buying is because they're law-abiding. They do not want to obtain it illegally. So what we're saying now is this: give these people who are obeying the law a right to self-defense. At the same time, make the acquisition of illegitimate weapons more difficult so that you make the punishment for illegal acquisition more stringent.
Can you argue with that? Can you argue with that? I mean, when he says give those, because as he argues, on the black market, the weapons are there. Those who are breaking the laws, the kidnappers, the armed robbers, the bandits, they're purchasing them. It says the good people who are, still law-abiding. Give the good people who are law-abiding a means to be able to purchase these weapons. Can you argue with that?
Well, whose responsibility is it to strengthen the law? I think the government. If the government is not strengthening our laws that need to, in quote, protect us, then the government has failed. Thank God we practice democracy. Nigerians should come together and ensure we have proper leaders who have the political will to enforce some of our laws. We're talking about, the Honorable just talked about illegal acquisition of firearms. Mm-hmm. What is the government doing to curb the menace?
Big question, Honorable. In a society where government hasn't done much to curb the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, and we accept that it is a problem that we're all facing, can we really say that we want more arms to solve the problem of proliferation of arms?
What we have proliferation of illegitimate weapons, of illicit weapons, not proliferation of legitimate weapons. They're two different things. And you see, we tend to concentrate more on punishing the law-abiding citizens and leaving the whole environment free for the criminals.
I don't know that when you put a gun here and another gun here, one is going to say it's legitimate, the other is going to be discriminated. They're both going to be weapons.
No, I still refer to what AIG in Lagos said, yes, that Inspector General of Police has suspended issuance of licenses since 2007.
Yeah, but the problem with what we're saying is that there is still a proliferation nonetheless. There is still, the black market is still flourishing nonetheless. So will the solution to the black market flourishing be to now make sure that the market is bigger?
No, the solution to that is enforcement. I mean, the Small and Light Weapons Center has been established under the Office of National Security Advisor. So that process is ongoing. And the whole idea is that for use these agents, because first we've ratified the ECOWAS Treaty that provides for that, and then we're trying to at least create an environment where these weapons, illicit weapons, could be, recover from, wherever they are, and then at least reduce the number in circulation. That process is ongoing.
How the process eventually evolves, but we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on this morning. Barrister Ibrahim Jibril Gusto is a member of the PDP. Thank you. And
thank you for having me.
From Zamfara State, thank you so much for coming to share your thoughts. Honorable Adejoro Adeogun is the Deputy Chair, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. Thank you as well for coming on this morning. Over now to you, Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. We also have to thank the Honorable Commissioner for Information in Zamfara State, and we wish the state all the best. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
Thanks for staying with us. Two gentlemen, as you've seen in the welcoming slide, join us for this conversation. Dayo Akintobi is editor-in-chief, Today Community newspaper, as well as Shehu Bashir, who is coordinator, Tinubu Solidarity Movement, Kwara State. Both of them join us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning. Mr. Akintobi, let me begin with you. It seems that every election cycle, we have to have this certificates controversies. Every election cycle since 1999. Why, in your opinion, does it matter?
Well, it does matter because apart from the electoral law and the constitution, there's also the public's right to know what the educational background of the people who seek to represent us are. We have a duty of care to ensure that those that we choose to lead us have the intellectual depth and the cosmopolitan type take to manage their rights. And actually, we have an obligation to scrutinize the educational background and qualifications. It is for this reason that it is a requirement of both the Electoral Act and the Constitution that there is a minimum benchmark of education that any aspirant for political office must attain. And it is the responsibility of that aspirant to prove before the regulator that he or she has attained that minimum benchmark. Well, the easiest way to do that, of course, is to present a certificate. But truth be told, certificates from 40, 50 years ago sometimes might be difficult to come by. And as a result, alternatives are sought, like affidavits and things like that. But this is what is leading to all the various controversies, is the fact that affidavits sometimes do not answer enough questions, particularly where there seem to have been discrepancies between what is being said now and what has been said before.
This is not without prejudice, Mr. Akintobi, to the fact that this particular controversy has been on as well since 1999. But let me ask Mr. Bashir this one, perhaps as a follow-up to what you have said. Well, Mr. Bashir, well, this conversation is not just starting now, especially concerning the APC presidential candidate. All these kinds of obscurity, so to speak, uncertainties, all of that. So how does this really bother the campaign movement that you support?
Thank you for having me. First and foremost, let me say something. You talked about election cycle. Actually, you don't expect an election of this magnitude not to be scrutinized. This notwithstanding, it doesn't mean that every scrutiny is correct or is in good faith. Most of these scrutinies are actually in bad faith, so to say. Okay, we know very well the caliber of those that contest these elections, unlike any other previous elections, particularly the person of Tinubu. And we know how challenging it has been for people to actually come up with one or two things against him in the past. Now that he has not been a candidate in the end of the election the last 13 years or thereabouts, now is a candidate of the biggest election in the country. We expect that this will come up. Where what I always, said since the beginning of this saga is, there's only two things that can be done here. One, you can be aggrieved against a particular candidate and say no to him, vote him out or vote him in the election. If you are aggrieved, go to court. For me, I think we have expressed so much opinion on something that has to do with legality or illegitimacy of an action. Okay, I don't think we need to bother so much. There have been a lot of debate on social media and all the rest. And I said, look, our opinions on social media cannot matter in reality in the genuineness, legality, or qualification of the candidate, unless a court so pronounced, okay, that such candidate is not qualified. Any other opinion we are expressing is basically on what comes in the election. So as it is, I don't think this actually is a big deal for Ashwaju that I know, because we know in the past, things that have come up, it has gone to court, gone to panel of inquiry, and it has been trashed. So I don't know why people are just bringing up. But I know I understand one thing for sure. There's a way you play a kind of mind game, on the mind of the people. You want people to see a particular candidate as being on the wrong side, so they sponsor all kind of wrong information ahead of election. But it doesn't really matter for those who know the way the game works. So for me, I'm not sure it has anything to do with Ashwaju's campaign. the campaign is going on fine, everybody is going on fine, nobody will take it very serious because we believe that no law is broken and no rules have been violated. So we move on.
Joe, is it a game that is being circulated where, because I mean, first of all, is that the man you're campaigning for, people will assume that you know him well, and such, and as such, you should be able to answer certain things that perhaps people may want to know. There's this matter circulating that he submitted an affidavit to INEC saying that he went on self-exile from 1994, and then his certificate was looted by unknown persons, and then now there are questions concerning several, perhaps his real age, his identity, did he go to school, who really is he? So when people ask those kinds of questions, to you, is it a game? Isn't it legitimate for people to want to find out what the real thing is or who the real person is?
Well, let me answer you in this way. For those that want to vote, who want to determine who their candidate will be, they have the right to ask questions. Okay? But for the form that any candidate will have submitted to the INEC, it is for INEC to work with. It is going to be within the discussion, the legal discussion of the INEC to determine whether a particular document suffices or not. Okay? It is within the INEC power to determine whether this document is genuine or not. So what a candidate submits to INEC to scrutinize is for INEC to work with officially. Okay? What people see from that document is for able to determine whether the argument profiled by the candidate is genuine or not, for them to make a decision. So as far as I'm concerned, like I did say, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not sure there's so much good intention from those, spreading these fake news. And I can tell you for sure, Tinubu is a well-nurtured, well-educated individual who has done so much in this country, who everybody knows has the right education, the basic requirements of education to qualify for the position of office of the president. I want to tell you, the law does not even say you must have degree or not. You don't only speculate the least qualification to have, which he has. Okay?
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
Are you suggesting that he doesn't have a degree?
He does, of course. I'm telling you, he does. He does have a degree. That's what I'm saying.
Which one?
The law says,
which one have you seen?
He has a university degree. Of course, the letter is everywhere. The memo from the University of Chicago State University is everywhere.
Which one have you seen?
Pardon?
Which one have you seen?
I have seen the one written by Chicago State University, confirming that actually was the student and graduate from Chicago State University. So anything to the contrary is just mischief. I can say that.
All right,
anything to the contrary is just mischief. Okay. People don't have. I'm coming, please. People don't have as much genuine information for the good cause that they have mischievous information for the bad cause.
Have genuine information. Since you have genuine information, how old is he?
Actually, Tinubu celebrated his 70th birthday last year, November. What more do you want to know, Mr. Chamberlain?
Is that his real age?
It is, of course, it's his real age. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for a second opinion? This was somebody, that's something I want to ask for people. Why do you need second opinion for somebody who has actually...
No, we need to get to the second guest because there are two of you on the show, so just hang on a minute. Mr. Akintobi, what do you think of this?
Well, I think that it's incumbent upon the candidate to fulfill all righteousness in every aspect of the qualification process, beginning with the regulator. There are three different entities involved here. There's a regulator, there's the candidate himself, and then, of course, there's the electorate. The very first threshold that needs to be crossed is the regulator. And that regulator operates according to both the Electoral Act and the Constitution. And what those two say, the gentleman is correct, is that you need to have attended, to have been educated up to primary school level. But there has to be some verification of that attendance up to secondary school level. Now, what has precipitated the current controversy is that purportedly the forms that Bola Tinubu submitted to INEC recently, he left the space blank for primary school, left the space blank for secondary school, and where the space asking about his university education, he simply put in his degree. Well, that, in the view of many Nigerians, does not meet the threshold that is required by law in terms of proving that you are educated to a minimum of secondary school level, or whether it is primary school level, whatever the law says. So I say for Asiwaju Bola Tinubu to put this controversy to rest, it is very easy. He has submitted an affidavit. We accept, as Nigerians, we do not believe that anyone will swear to an oath under false pretenses. We give you benefit of the doubt that that affidavit is true and honest. But the affidavit does not in and of itself represent proof of the fact that you've been educated up to a minimum level. Now, we accept that certificates were looted, but every educational institution in the world has an archive from which they can pull your records. Even if your certificates are lost, they can write a letter attesting to the fact that you attended from so-so year to so-so year, and you completed class this to class this, and perhaps this was your school number while you were in the institution. So what I'm saying is, I think at this point, because the stakes are so high at the presidential level, remember this issue has come up before when Tinubu was running for Senate in 1993 and when he was running for governor in 1999, to the point that Lake Ganifa had to go to court all the way to the Supreme Court, and that issue has not been put to bed. But because the stakes are so high now at the presidential level,
all right,
I put the burden back on Tinubu to clear the air by simply asking any of the institutions he attended to provide proof. His certificates are missing, but he can provide a transcript or a letter to that effect and submit to INEC, not social media.
Mr. Shehu, quickly, isn't that a simple thing to do? Shouldn't it be done? Mr. Bashir Shehu.
If the law requires him to do it, he will. If the law does not mandate him to do it, he won't do anything within the confines of the law. Simple as ABC.
Okay. Well, we have to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation this morning. Rather short, I'd say. Dayo Akintobi is editor-in-chief Today Community Newspaper, as well as Sheikh Bashir, coordinator, Tinubu Solidarity Movement in Kwara State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Quickly to your own messages now. Let's look at this first one from Olagunjo Oladele. It's a mail. Says about insecurity. In a theoretical world where the quality of life is equal, regardless of income and ability to pay for security, does having access to a gun affect prudent decision-making about why and who to use it on? How do those choices affect security outcomes? Legalized gun ownership is characterized by two major failures. This could be described using the state of the U.S. Adverse political preference and moral hazards, goes on and on. And this second one by Andrew Roberts says, legalizing guns is the worst harm any government would do against an already fragile nation or state. Instead, why not press to have a state police or a strong state security system from all the LG areas to parade the bushes and villages?
When Henry says we need a president that can move our police system from central police to state police. Let every state in Nigeria have a state police, local government police, and community police. This is the way forward. Okay.
And Suleiman says the state should train and empower the community protection guards to protect the people in the rural areas and provide intelligence to federal state actors. Nigeria doesn't have a framework to checkmate the misuse of firearms by individuals. So if we're to go by the vote here, it looks like it's a no for what the Zamfara state government is proposing. But thank you so much for sending in your comments and tweets this morning. I'm Alkwe Ogu Yusuf.
I'm
wishing you a great week ahead.
Yes, I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful week ahead.
I'm Train Bellinoso. Goodbye.